Hey everybody, welcome back to the Field of Greens podcast presented by Northwoods Whitetails Food Plot Seed Company. I'm John Comp, owner of Northwoods Whitetails Seed Company, and we welcome in the YouTube channel as well. We're trying to double production here, a couple of reasons. In typical fashion, I'm starting to catch a cold right before opening day of bow season here in Michigan. I can feel it coming on. It's kind of going around school and everything like that, so this is going to be kind of a shorter podcast. The other thing is we're just running late, and it's so blessed to be this busy. And the other thing is that any parent that has kids in sports or activities, Stephanie, my wife, and I are blessed to have a son that is a junior. He's on the varsity football team, and we have a daughter that's a freshman that's on the volleyball team. And this week, out of the 4 nights, we have events. So very blessed, and that takes a lot of time, thankfully, and things like this get put on the back burner. We're just finishing up our seed sales season. Cannot thank everyone enough. It was an unbelievable year. Very blessed. So thankful to be in this position. So things like this kind of get put on the back burner, as this is not our number one business model here is these podcasts and YouTubes. We're very thankful that we get to do them, trying to get our information to our customers, truthful information, helpful information, things that they can use. Not being tied up on social media there's just so many opinions that sometimes I don't think they're correct. But anyhow, that's why we're going to do this. This is going to be part 3 of our best food plot series for 2024. We're going to talk about clovers. And unfortunately, again, I think we're probably at least a month late on this. Some of this might not be relevant for probably the northern quarter of the country. We're probably at the very end here in Upper Michigan for planting clover, because we worry about freeze out. So let's talk about clovers. If you're still in the lower 3/4 of the country, this will still be relevant because you can still plant clover right now. So let's talk about clovers. And the types we have here at Northwoods, we like to break them up into 3 categories: annuals, biennials, and perennials. And the annual clovers, we don't deal a lot with annual clovers here. We like our crimson here. We do a lot of spring planting with our crimson here this far north. Some of the annuals that I personally use, and we might bring them in to eventually sell them because we have such good results with them, is Berseem. And then I believe Arrowleaf we've tried one time as well, and it actually grew quite well, but it didn't winter very well. I believe that's an annual as well. But the 2 main that I deal with are Berseem clover and crimson clover, and most of those are strictly spring planted clovers for me personally. We use them as a green plow down. They make great summer food. They make great weed suppressor, nitrogen fixer. They create organic nitrogen for the following plots in the fall. And those are the annuals. Now, if you're south of Illinois, Ohio, man, maybe southern South Dakota, all the way over to Kentucky, those states, and further north, maybe that whole I-70 corridor, if you use crimson in the fall, it'll come back, it'll winter well, because you don't have the drastic freezes that we have up here. Very seldom can I get crimson to winter well up here because of the cold temperature. Now, it didn't get that bad. We had a real mild winter last year, and a lot of our crimson that we put in our garden actually made it, but you can't really plan on that or guarantee it. So I would say out of every 10 years, maybe we can get crimson up here to winter 1 or 2 years. But if you're south at those areas that I described, you can get crimson to come back, go to flower, and then go to seed. Folks mow it. I've talked to quite a few folks in the south that do this, and they'll get a perpetual crimson food plot because it keeps reseeding itself. Now, those are the 2 annuals that we strictly deal with. And again, I use these for nitrogen fixers for spring plow downs that we're going to plow down, plant in the spring, plow down, and use that organic matter nitrogen that they create for our fall plantings. The biennial that we deal with here is our red clover. Most reds that I've looked at are a 2-year clover. I think they make great fall planting. I like planting red in the fall because it will winter here, and it'll carry over to the spring. It's one of the first things to green up. The deer have plenty of food, and it's got great protein content. It'll be great food source all summer for the deer, and again, I use it as a green plow down the following year. So a strategy that we'll do is take something like our fall forage or our green forage blend, plant it in mid to late August, early September, depending on where you are in the country. We'll add 8 to 10, 12 pounds of red clover to it, And it does grow quickly and becomes a food component in the fall, but it becomes a better food component the following year. Suppresses weeds, keeps weeds at bay, feeds the deer, creates organic matter, creates organic nitrogen, and then we'll use it the following year for a plow down. So I really like reds. That's one of my favorite fall plantings is red clover because it'll attract, it grows so quickly, it'll attract and hold whitetails in the fall, but it will also winter well, it'll come back in the spring, great protein content when the deer need it the most, and then it's a great summer food and weed suppressor for a plow down in the fall. Now, perennials. These are our workhorse clovers. What I mean by that is like our clover blend plus chicory. Those are the exact same recipes, except clover blend plus chicory has 25% chicory in it. And then our seclusion mix, which is quickly becoming our go-to for harvest plots, kill plots, small plots. That's got a different white clover component to it, but it has 65% chicory. Now, chicory, we're going to talk about that today as well because it is roped in with clovers, although it's a forb, it's not a clover, but we have planted them all together and the strategies is the same with chicory. So our perennials are only white ladinos. And if you look at our clover blend and our clover blend plus chicory, our seclusion, we do not use any annuals. We do not use reds in there. Those are strictly whites. I'm looking for the clover, the production in the whites. The clover blend goes in a bigger destination food plot or the clover blend plus chicory. There's some graze resistant. It grows back quickly. There's a lot of cold resistant clovers in there that'll take frost. I've looked here. Now, again, for a lot of people that don't know where we're at, we're north of Green Bay, Wisconsin by about 45 miles. I've actually gone out in January, kicked the snow and ice back, and our clovers are still green. They're eating on it. Same thing with the chicory. So we've got 4 different varieties of whites in our clover blends, clover blend plus chicory, and each and every one has a purpose, and we really like those. Whether it's drought resistant, heat resistant, it's browse pressure tolerant, and then cold, tolerant to cold. So there's a lot of things built into these that we really like. So a lot of people ask, what do I plant? How do I determine which one of your clover blends to use? And the biggest thing is going to be your soil as well as location on the property, okay? If you've got really good soil, if you've got something like, pH above 6, organic matter 2, 2.5, and the ground can hold decent moisture. I really like clover blend plus chicory because you've got the makings of a great addition to any food plot. Now, if you're in kind of lower organic matter, clay, ground, doesn't hold water very well, or you're on something like a ridge top, especially right now in this drought, doesn't hold moisture very well. It's going to be tough to sustain that white clover through this dry period, where what's the word looking for? That ground will dry out quickly. The water moves through it quicker rather than if it was in a bottom ground, lower ground. So we might look at something like maybe our seclusion will work because that white clover and that seclusion can take these conditions a little bit better. Or we might look at something like a red and a chicory combination, albeit the red is a biennial and you'll have to frost seed red every other year. But the red can take lesser conditions. Even if you're further south, you could do a crimson chicory combination. But in those drier conditions, I highly recommend getting some chicory component in there. So, the worse the soil you have, we're probably kind of limited on what we can do. But, with a lot of people that have lesser soils, crappy soils, they're still trying to get a perennial program going. And what we're doing right now is recommending strictly red or crimson with a combination of chicory. So that's going to determine, the other thing, and we talked about the seclusion. If you're doing a kill plot might not be politically correct anymore, but the harvest plot, the small, hunting plots, 1/8 acre, 1/4 acre that you're going to cover with archery equipment, I really like that seclusion. Everything that we do right now, our harvest plots, kill plots, are going into the seclusion blend. I really like it as long as you get good sunlight, because these are broadleaves. They need decent sunlight, probably 2/3 of the day, decent moisture. We can't be planting on pure sand. But the biggest thing is with these smaller plots is they can't be covered in leaves come October. Okay, when you get that, up here the leaf drop is usually around Oh, I'd say around 15th to 30th of October. It's beautiful, beautiful viewing up here in Upper Michigan. It's probably one of the most beautiful places in the country when all these maples start turning. But with that, we get a fall rain that could be on the ground quickly. So if you're in that situation with your harvest plot, your kill plot, your hunting plot, to where you're in the woods, you're surrounded with trees, and it just drowns the clovers or the chicory in leaves, where you get 6 to 10 inches of leaves on there, your options are this. Just do cereal grains, because a lot of the times I've seen rye push through that. But the other option is, and I really don't like this, October 25th, October 30th, you're in there with a leaf blower or a rake. I'm not a big fan of that, so I'm looking at maybe cutting trees back if I can. If it's lease ground and you can't cut, maybe just go with cereal grains. Or if you think you can sneak in there and not disturb the deer, with a leaf blower. But you got to make sure those hunting plots with those broadleafs, like seclusion, you don't bury them with leaves. So that's going to be kind of the situations we talk to people about when they call and ask which clover blends or clovers that we recommend. Now, planting, how do we plant these? Right now, fall, for me, it was a couple weeks ago. I like this time of the year planting. This is my favorite time of the year to plant clover. And here's why. Because especially the whites, we talked about the reds. They'll come out of the ground quickly. Like I'll typically plant my red clover here with a fall forage or a green forage early August. And it's tall enough now in the stuff that we've planted that the deer are actually hitting it already, because it grows so quickly. But now the whites, we've also done some whites. We did a food plot that we converted into the clover blend plus chicory, and it pops out of the ground and it just kind of sits there. And we've actually had a couple of people say, hey, my clover's not doing anything. Well, it's starting to build a root system right now. It's getting ready for winter. And what I like about that is you're not fighting weeds right now. And if you're planting it with a companion crop, especially like rye is a weed suppressor, and it does a very good job of keeping the weeds at bay in the fall. Same with oats. And then next year, you're not battling weeds. That clover's got a root system built already, and it's just going to explode out of the ground once we start to get some warm weather, especially if it's the whites. Same thing with the chicory. The chicory, this is another one that we planted early August. It's tall enough now to where the deer are going to be eating on it in October. It's still kind of growing in September, but it grows extremely fast. It's amazing how fast chicory grows. We planted some early August, right around the same time we did our brassicas. We were doing it all in one weekend. And man, that chicory is 6-7 inches tall already. So there's going to be plenty of food with that chicory. The clover's starting to come, the whites, but that chicory, there's going to be enough food that with that chicory, it's tall enough to where they're going to be able to utilize it in October when they really, really go after this chicory. So I really like, obviously there's, we're going to talk about frost seeding, but the thing is, you can set the table right now for frost seeding. If you're going to frost seed clover next year, make sure you've got a good clean plot, and a great way to do that is use cereal grains like oats, like rye, even buckwheat. The oats and the buckwheat are winter colors, so you don't have to deal with that next year. You have a clean plot. Rye, you can get a food plot right now with rye and cereal grains, and that rye is going to come back next year. You can frost seed into it and mow it 2 or 3 times, or hit it with clethodim, and guess what? You've got a nice clean clover plot. So that's the way I really like it. I mean, we're going to talk again next year about, we call it spring seeding or rain seeding, where you can go in and spray. Clover is one of the very few seeds that in the springtime you don't have to really do a lot of maintenance. I'm sorry, you don't have to do a lot of prep work. I know a lot of folks that go in and spray twice, and right before we get those heavy spring rains, they'll seed, and that'll knock it into the ground. But what I do recommend, my favorite way of planting, is right now. And again, the biggest thing is that you're not fighting the weeds like you might be in the spring. You're setting the table for a great clover plot next year. I really like fall planting. Now, one of the things, actually 2 of the things I want to talk about, and we've covered this every time we do clovers. I was in Tractor Supply the other day getting some equipment for our tiller or something. And, I got to walk by that food plot seed aisle, and there it is, all the big buck seed companies, and they've got their clover blends, and I got to look at the seed tags, of course. And it's, we talked about annuals, we talked about perennials, talked about biennials. And I think there's a time and a place for each annual, for each perennial, for each biennial, like red. But these big buck seed companies are lumping it all into one. Okay. Two in particular. One was 30%, I think, and one was 33% Berseem clover. Now, if it's frosty Berseem, which is a lot more expensive than regular Berseem, it might winter here. I don't think so. But if you're planting clover this far north, in maybe half the country, that doesn't winter very well. So right off the bat, let's say we're planting, because I've talked about how I really like fall planting with our clovers. Okay, and you put this clover blend in from these big buck seed companies. And 33, 35, let's just say 30% Berseem. Guess what's not going to be there next spring? More than likely that Berseem clover, because it's an annual, and a lot of the Berseem clover doesn't winter very well. Now, throw on top of that, both of them had mid-30s seed coating. And I've had long conversations with producers about these seed coatings. And the general consensus is, and I can't speak for everyone, I'm just telling you what the information that has been provided to me, is a lot of these seed coatings are basically just lime. And, they'll give it a fancy name like a rain coating or something like that. But again, so now a coated Berseem clover, you're 70% in a 4-pound bag. What you paid for won't be there in 2025. Okay. I've seen a company boast about how they have the most seed pounds per acre, and it was 10 pounds an acre over our competitors. 2 bags, 2 5-pound bags. And I thought, well, that's cute. Obviously, you guys don't do math very well because you sell 10 pounds to the acre with 25% seed coating. That's 7.5 pounds of seed. Here at Northwoods, where we have 0 seed coating, we recommend 8 pounds an acre, where you actually get 8 pounds of, and this is very important, inoculated seed. Our seed is inoculated already, but we have less than 1% inert matter. So actually, and it's less expensive, we actually provide more actual seed than they do. Yet they're kind of throwing darts at us because we only offer 8 pounds an acre when they offer 10 pounds an acre. But if you do the math, you're only getting 7.5. Okay, and that's reality, folks. And a lot of people, what these seed companies expect is you don't pay attention to this. I've never ever seen or heard of a video of people talking about this. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing the videos. That's why we're doing the podcast. We just want people to be informed. That, if you don't want to buy from us, that's fine. I get it. Okay, everybody's got their favorite. But just understand this, that next year when you buy this, fancy plastic jug or pretty looking bag or whatever, understand this. A lot of what you're paying for right now, September 2024, will not be there May, June, in 2025 because it's not coming back as an annual. It's seed coating that is unnecessary, and people say, well, it's better germination rates. Well, I've done germ tests. Trust me, if we had a germ issue with our clover blend, with the thousands and thousands and thousands of bags we've sold, we would know it, okay? And I've not seen that. With this drought, I'm not going to make promises and saying, well, we've got a rain special seed coating. No, that's not true. That couldn't be further from the truth. I don't want that. But here's another thing to think about these companies that are talking about, and I've seen the pro staffers, well, it germinates without rain with this magic coating on there. Okay, well, here in Michigan, in especially northern Michigan, northwestern Michigan, western Michigan, they're in the second driest September on record. Okay, so let's just say somebody over in, I don't know, Traverse City. What else is over there? Someplace south of Traverse City, anywhere along the shoreline. They buy this magic coating seed, magic coated seed from Tractor Supply. Okay, and they put it out there, and somehow, some way, it magically germinates in this drought. All right, and now they haven't had rain. I know one guy down in, I think he's north of Grand Rapids. They haven't had rain all summer. And this seed magically germinates. What do you think's going to happen? that root is going to look and look and look for moisture, and it's going to die. So, there's a lot of nonsense and BS being brought to you folks by some of these companies, and that's why we don't do that. I just, I try to be truthful. If it's not going to rain, there's no moisture in the ground, probably wouldn't plant the seed. So think about that. Those seed coatings, man, I don't think they're all cracked up to be. We don't use them. I don't think we need them. I think you need a good quality seed bed, good soil and moisture, and I think it'd be just fine. So last thing I want to talk about is, the folks on YouTube can look at this, they can see this behind me, is a drought strategy. And like I just talked about before, Michigan, I know folks out in Virginia, Pennsylvania, folks down in Missouri that we talked to, and I imagine it's all places in between. Really dry conditions, and guys are just sitting on their seed waiting to plant. It might be, in a lot of places, it's probably past time to plant our Sweet Feast brassica blend, but you could probably still get the Southern States short season blend, and that's why we designed the blend for situations like this. But here where I'm at, this is the 4th year in a row this fall is where the water's just been shut off. And it's very tough. Luckily we've caught a pop-up shower that's supposed to rain this coming Friday. But the problem is the ground's so dry right now. One rain, really isn't going to excite me. I want to see that 2-3 rains in 10 days, because once the moisture gets there, it's not going to get sucked in the ground. And anything like if we do rye overseed, or if we do, some clover plantings or something, there's going to be moisture on the surface available for those roots, that top 1 inch. And I've talked to a lot of folks, and we're working with a lot of folks. They're starting to take their program for food plots in a different direction, to where they're doing 30 to 50% perennials. I know people that are going 70% perennials, because quite honestly, they're sick and tired of dealing with this drought, and you just can't count on rain anymore. I know next week we're going to try to do a video. We finally went and bought some trash pumps. We've got ponds I've got a pond behind our house here, a swimming pond. A lot of folks that have watched our videos and kept up with us. We're trying to do the rye overseed. We're doing some tricks. We got, like I said, we bought some trash pumps, so we're going to run some water out of the pond. There's a ditch with water in it up on one of the properties. We've got trash pumps that we're going to go take up there to keep brassicas going. And we're going to talk about that next week, because I don't see any relief in sight. We might get a pop-up shower here or there, but the water level's so low, the ground is so, it's going to take rain for multiple days to get it back to great conditions to where we can really grow good food plots. The pop-up showers are going to help. But anyway, we're looking at, on all the grounds that we're working on, we're looking at probably bumping our perennials, clovers, up to 50%. And that's just because of the drought. Every year it's been right around the 1st to 5th of August, the water just shuts right off. And at some point in time, you can't fight Mother Nature. We can try, but a lot of these food plots I can't get water to. And, I know it looks cool on social media, filling your 30-gallon sprayer up and trying to soak a half-acre plot, but you'd probably have to do that 100 times to make a difference. So we're probably converting a lot of our food plots next year, depending on what the soil is. We're either going to go clover blend chicory. Obviously, seclusion is going to be in every single one of our harvest plots. And then on some of these drier conditions, we're going to look at the red clover chicory combo. So that's something to think about. I know a lot of people have done that already. I know Jake Ellinger, Habitat Solutions 360, he is the brains behind the seclusion blend. And I think he's got 60 or 70% now in our perennials at his farm. Through the years, I've seen some beautiful deer take up residence there. And Jake eventually harvests those deer. And he's probably, I think, at 65 to 70% perennials now on his farm, just because of the drought. And I know he's going through a drought right now. So that's something to think about. I mean, look at those conditions. If you've got great soil and you can convert to perennials and have success with those, that's something you might want to take a look at until this weather pattern gets squared away in the fall. And it's tough to predict a year from now, but I think what we're trying to do is just prepare and at least get it to 50%. So hopefully that helps. I apologize for such a short podcast, such a short video. Like I said, I'm starting to get a cold. I don't know if you could tell. But, of course, deer season's, I don't know, what, 8, 10 days away. So, of course, this is a yearly thing for me. I get sick this time of year. So, probably miss opening weekend. But anyhow, if you've got any questions, you got concerns or your experiences, if you've converted to more perennials to fight the drought, I'd love to hear about it. If you're on YouTube, you can comment in the comments below. Let us know what you've done, what you're thinking. If you've got questions, if you're listening to the podcast, Field of Greens, if you've got questions, you can go to our website, northwoodswhitetails.com. In the lower right-hand corner, there's an icon that you can actually talk to us through text message. It comes to our phone, and we try to answer that within a timely fashion. So, all right, folks, I'm going to cut it short there. Again, I'm sorry it's so late. It's a month late. We've just been so busy, and two, I'm catching a cold, so we're going to try to keep this to a minimum. But thank you so much for watching, everyone on YouTube, everyone on Field of Greens podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll hopefully talk to everybody in about a week with some ways to fight this drought. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.